Hi there! Welcome to Pallet University. In the next video in our Real Biologist Reacts series, reacting to the art of Joshua Dunlop, who is an incredible artist and kind enough to let me continue to make art based on his content, which obviously he doesn't have to do. It's his content. He could tell me to stop at any time, and I absolutely would. But generous as he is, you should also show him some generosity by showing some support to all of his social links, which will be linked down below. His ArtStation page, his YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, all that good stuff will be linked down below. Please go show him some support. And while you're down there, if you like this kind of content, make sure to leave a thumbs up. And also, since you're already down there, you can also click that subscribe button and click the little bell so you don't miss the next time we put out one of these, in my opinion, really cool videos. So today we're taking on a classic. I seem to be on a kick of doing invertebrates, even though I say in every one of the videos that I'm not all that familiar with a lot of things invertebrate. But today we're doing the Caterpie line. Very classic Generation 1 Pokemon. And, you know, even so classic that it was Ash's first Pokemon that he ever caught in the anime. So, let's talk about Caterpie. So, I'm sure that there is a specific type of... Actually, for sure I know there is a specific type of caterpillar that Caterpie is based off of. And it does actually have the thing on its head too, although it is not permanently out. It is weirdly a snake mimic. That is what this type of caterpillar does in the real world. It is basically, it has like an inflatable, I think it's like inflatable. It might just be like some kind of extendable thing on its forehead that it can flick in and out like a snake's tongue. And the big eyes are not its actual eyes. And I think they're more sort of back here instead of on the side. But its real eyes are like up here. And then it has the fake eyes on the back. So it looks like a snake. And it does that to sort of ward off birds. Which obviously works a significant amount of the time. Otherwise that wouldn't be selected for in natural selection. Which is super, super cool. And I wish I could tell you the name of that type of caterpillar slash moth or butterfly that it turns into. But I'm sure you can just Google like snake mimicking caterpillar and it'd come up. So he really doesn't change much from the original like Caterpie art, because frankly it just looks like a caterpillar. The main thing that I've seen that he changed is sort of the mouth area, and I think Caterpie's art, it's not separated, it's just sort of a bulb type thing on the front. But again, I'm not incredibly familiar with arthropods, so that probably is... I think that really depends on the species. So because I have a pet lizard, I do actually interact with arthropods relatively often because my lizard eats bugs. And one of the types of thing that I feed it occasionally, that I feed her occasionally, are this type of caterpillar called hornworms, which frankly get gigantic, and I have to make sure that they don't get too big because they grow incredibly quickly. They're also called like tomato worms, but they're large and this same color green, have some like black going down their side and stuff, but they also have like black mandibles, and they're not at all shaped like this. They have like actual little spikes and like little things attached to their mouth that are sort of like scoop in food. That being said, insects are by far the most diverse group of at least animals. I'm sure that, you know, protists blow them out of the water, I'm sure. Probably some types of plants probably beat them out, but insects are by far the most diverse group of animals. So it would not surprise me that there's all sorts of mouth or feeding morphologies in caterpillars. That would not surprise me at all. What else we got? So these little hairs that you see on here are something that also isn't in, you know, Caterpie's normal art, but is very, very common in almost every type of caterpillar that I've seen. They have some form of like hairs. They're not the same kind of like hair that mammals have, but they serve similar functions to like whiskers, in that they're just there to detect vibrations, because frankly caterpillars' eyesight is pretty bad. And so they need these to detect any kind of vibration to sort of, that's how they interact with their environment, is by feeling vibrations. That's how most insects and arthropods actually do, especially like spiders. Spiders have really good vision, but they also react very, very notably to vibrations as well. Interestingly, so that same kind of caterpillar that I was talking about before, the hornworms, they do have sort of like suction cup type feet, but they're not really feet. So they do have around their head 6, well, I guess 3 on each side, little legs like you would think. And then they do have these sort of suction cuppy things at the very end of their tail, or of their body, I guess. They have these little suction cup things. They had, I think, 2 on each side. That's very bad suction cups, but you know what I mean. They had those at the end. And so that's how most caterpillars, I shouldn't say most, that's how a lot of caterpillars sort of locomote, is that they sort of inchworm, where they'll scoot their butt up, plant their little suction cups, and then use that to move their front forward. Then now that their front's forward and they're stretched out, they can inch up the back, and that's how inchworms do it, is that they don't have legs at the beginning and the end of their body. They have true legs at the beginning and then these little suction cup things at the end. So again, that's just purely from Caterpie's art. And if I'm not mistaken, Caterpie just has the like little bulbs. I don't think that there actually is like a suction cup on them. I'm almost positive that's true, but I mean, you can see it, you know, below me right here. I don't think that Caterpie does, so that's a cool thing that Joshua added that like makes sense. I don't think there's much else to talk about Caterpie. I would assume, though, I'll talk about this part. So I think I would assume that this is some form of silk producing thing. I honestly don't know. Especially when it comes to like larval forms of invertebrates that I know almost nothing. I mean, like comparatively, like I don't know nothing, but compared to like my vertebrate knowledge, it's basically nothing. That's what I would assume that this is supposed to be. It also could be, I mean, Caterpie, its Pokédex entries do mention that like its horn, you know, this thing on its head, produces like a really bad smell if it's threatened. I would assume that this is actually what this is for, but I don't know. Alright, on to Metapod. Again, really not all that much to talk about. So, one thing that I always kind of thought was weird was that Metapod had eyes. Because if you think of like a normal chrysalis, like I know in like 3rd grade, so when I was about 8, we had some monarch butterflies. We like bought them from like a company or something. And we had the caterpillars and we fed them and watched them, you know, pupate, turn into like their chrysalis, and then turn into a butterfly, which we then released. And the chrysalis did not have eyes. So I remember always thinking, man, that's weird. Like, why does Metapod have eyes? I mean, obviously it's a Pokemon. That's the answer at the end of the day. But now, so I've started, since like I mentioned, I feed bugs to my lizard. I have like a bug colony going of the type of bugs that I feed. I feed her mostly mealworms, just because they're cheap and she likes them. But obviously, if I have like a colony going, I breed them, and so they eventually do reach their pupa form. And granted, beetles, like mealworms are beetles. Beetles are infinitely different in many ways to like butterflies and moths. And I know the name of the group of butterflies and moths, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. I'll put it on screen. But the pupae of these mealworms do still keep a lot of features. Like they do still have eyes. They still technically have legs, even though they don't really use them. And yeah, so they're not, it is not unheard of for different kinds of pupae to still retain some kind of eye. Although for butterflies and moths, I feel like that is pretty uncommon. But again, not much to say about Metapod. Other than that, I'm really jealous of, I don't know if you saw her on Twitter, and I don't know exactly when this specific video is going up, but at the time I'm recording this, it was on Twitter like a week ago, 2 weeks ago. But the Pokemon Company was selling these giant Metapod, like, cocoons that you could buy with, like, a big hole, like, right here. That you could literally, like, slip yourself into and literally just, like, cocoon yourself. And I am so, so jealous of anyone who actually got one. And granted, they cost, like, a couple $100s. But, like, if I had that money, I would absolutely have bought one. Alright, that's probably actually going to be a relatively short video. We're moving on to Butterfree. So, like I said, I know much more about adult forms of insects than I do the larval forms. So it is very, very common for the body of, I'm just going to look up the name of the group of butterflies and moths, so I won't put it on screen earlier. Lepidoptera. That is the name of butterflies and moths. Lepidoptera. Thank you, Internet. Anyway, lepidopterans almost always do have some form of fluffy body. Although butterflies, and not so much moths, some moths do too. Instead of having like actual mouth parts here, which, he includes the little tiny fangs that Butterfree has. Instead of having like an actual mouth part, they have like this long proboscis. Very much like Beautifly. Beautifly, like, I will have literally nothing to talk about, if and when Joshua gets to that point in the Pokedex. I'll have literally nothing to talk about because Beautifly literally just is a butterfly. So something interesting, though, is that he gives, and I shouldn't say he, this was something the Pokemon Company did. So insects differ from chelicerates, which are spiders, scorpions, horseshoe crabs, ticks, a couple others. But they differ from those in that they have 3 body parts. So a spider has the head and the abdomen. So, the head is technically called the cephalothorax because it is the... I drew these way out of proportion, by the way. So they have the cephalothorax and the abdomen. So the cephalothorax is the head and thorax. So it has, like, its eyes up here. I'm just drawing random eyes. And then the legs also come off of the cephalothorax. Then they have, like, their spinnerets back here that do the webs. Then they have their fangs here. This is my really bad drawing of a spider. Whereas insects have a proper head. They have the thorax. And then they have their abdomen. The thorax is where the legs come off of and where the wings come off of. And the head is sort of where the eyes are. We'll draw big compound eyes. And the antennae. And then with some, this is basically an ant or a wasp, so they would have like a stinger at the end. And so this is like the main, not the main, but a major difference between things like spiders and true insects. However, obviously Butterfree only has a head and an abdomen. So, again, this is something that the Pokemon Company loves to do, is like they go halfway with something. They do this with all of their spider Pokemon. And that they never give a spider Pokemon 8 legs, like ever. And there's no spider Pokemon in Generation 1, so I can't talk about this anywhere else. But if you look at every spider Pokemon that there is, it's only got 6 legs, which is dumb. Whether it's Galvantula even only has 4 legs. But like Arachnid, 6 legs. Ariados, technically 6 legs, even though 2 of them are like pointed upward, which isn't unheard of. If they had their other 6 legs. But anyway, I'm going off on a rant now. And it's funny, I'm trying to think, because the next group that we're going to do later in the week is the Beedrill line. And I'm trying to think, I think Beedrill has 3 proper body segments, but I don't know that for sure. But I just know that Butterfree does not. And it's always kind of bugged me. And I think even Venomoth does have 3 proper body segments. So Pokemon just really kind of dropped the ball on this one. So looking at Butterfree's hands, I could potentially see these legs being not actual legs, being some sort of weird accessory limb. You know, I wouldn't put it past insects to do that. Again, insects by far the most diverse group on the planet, at least for animals. So if you can think of something, I'm almost positive that there's an insect somewhere that has done that. But I could potentially see that like these are like a modified set of legs. So like each one of these is a leg that is sort of fused. I could potentially see that being the case. In which case, I mean, can see a little bit, and it might just be what Joshua's watermark here. But I could potentially see there being like, so here's the boundary between the head and the thorax. There's like a little bit of like a line here. So maybe like here's the abdomen, or here's the thorax, and here's the abdomen. I guess I could kind of see that, but that's really grasping at straws. In which case, yeah, these would be some kind of weird accessory organ or some sort of other appendage. And then these are the 3 legs on each side sort of combined. Which again, insects, they can do. There's an insect that does pretty much everything. So would not surprise me. I don't think there's an insect that does that, but it would not surprise me. Very typical insect eyes. That's one of the things that I'm really glad they didn't do with Butterfree, is give it some kind of anthropomorphic eyes, like they do with like Venomoth, for example. Let's see, the antennae look fine, although generally you want your antennae facing forward, because like that's where your head is facing. I don't know exactly why, but pretty much every insect that I'm aware of has. I shouldn't say that, because again, there's an insect that does everything. But I would say that most insects that I'm aware of have, for example, I tried to breed cockroaches for similar things to feeding my lizard. They're trickier to breed than the mealworms are. But I mean, their antennae are in front. The beetles, you know, the adult forms of the mealworms that I feed, their antennae face front. So like, I'm sure that there are some kind of insect that have antennae that do other things, but it's like, you want to know what's in front of you, I guess, because it's if you're already facing that way. So like, if something attacks you from the back, I think most insects are just like, well, I guess I'm gone. Yeah, so you want to know what's in front of you, because most insects don't have incredible vision, so that's what their antennae do. One other thing that I did want to talk about with Butterfree here is that insects are really interesting in that every insect at some, like, the first insect had 2 sets of wings. So you can see right here, there's one wing and then the other one. Sometimes they're fused like this. Sometimes, like in flies and mosquitoes, the sort of back pair of wings is just lost. They don't have it anymore. Or in the case of like beetles, this first wing actually becomes sort of like the casing. So if you've ever seen a beetle fly like a ladybug, they'll sort of pop open the wing casing, and then they have the wings that sort of let them fly from here. The casing is just a modified wing. That's all that is. So I don't know. I just think that's really cool that the first group to ever evolve flight in the history of our planet, they started with 2 wings and then have since changed like so much. Like every group does something different with their wings, and it's super, super cool. Anyway, with that, we're going to end off this video. Like I said, make sure to check out the video later this week where I sort of talk about and discuss the Beedrill line of Pokemon. Once again, make sure to throw Joshua lots and lots of love and support with all of the links down in the description. Make sure to follow me on Twitter as well at Pallet_U to keep up on all things Pokemon science, as well as if you feel like our content is worthy supporting financially, we do have a Patreon, the link to which will be down in the description. Thank you so much, as always, to our supporter over on Patreon, Patty. Your support is always greatly, greatly appreciated. And thank you so much for watching, and as always, there's a time and place for everything.